Hello, everyone. Good evening. If you're watching this at the prescribed time of 7 p.m. Pacific time, it's evening. I want to talk to you today a little bit about Toltec history and why it's important for your current work in the world. The Toltecs, as you know, were a multicultural society. The oral tradition informs us that at its peak, there were people in Mesoamerica and other areas in North America who were from Europe, Africa, possibly the Middle East, other parts of Asia, including India and China, as well as North and South America. So about 5 continents were represented. That claim requires there to have been transoceanic travel, and by that I mean the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, far, far in advance of Columbus's highly publicized voyage, which academia, and I use that term to encompass all the various academic disciplines as controlled by the rigid standards of modern academia, who unfortunately, under the guise of ensuring high quality standards are maintained in whatever academic discipline we're talking about, whether it's history or archaeology or anthropology or linguistics or biology. Biology kind of crosses that anthropological line by bringing in the whole concept of DNA. All these disciplines are rigid, and they, under the guise of maintaining standards, there is a higher level conspiracy to not go there regarding any transatlantic, trans-Pacific, etc. travel prior to Columbus. His voyage was widely publicized at the time, both before he went and when he got back, with Native Americans who he'd brought back with him to prove he'd really been in another country. And this was when the European continent started waking to the reality that their long-held beliefs that the Earth was flat, that B, it was a certain size, and that only certain peoples inhabited it, that set of beliefs was wrong. Now, it was very true then that many people went to their graves not believing it. They don't know how Columbus might have forged that data, but they just didn't believe it. But most of the world very quickly embraced the idea. It's like, oh, the world is a little different than we thought. So this starts to affect us culturally, because there's something there. There's something there to be hidden that those people, they who are in power, don't want us to know. And for hundreds and hundreds of years now, any evidence of this transoceanic travel, that's one of the keys, has been resoundingly denounced and debunked and covered up through not reporting, through destruction of artifacts, through destruction of writings, all in an attempt to keep whatever knowledge might be gained by embracing that model, to keep that knowledge from common use. As you know from some of my previous discussions on Toltec history, a lot of the Toltec knowledge was related to consciousness and the spiritual work, which was the entire focus of their society. But there was a whole philosophy that pervaded all aspects of life, which you've heard me talk about, called the Totecayotl philosophy, which included food production and farming. It included health and healing, especially through the use of healing plants. and it included a formal educational system that would look nothing like our modern day educational system of going to grade school and then high school and then college. But that educational system was pervaded throughout society, and it essentially started as soon as a child was born. Mothers would carry their children around not as like a dead weight that would someday grow up and then you could start talking to them or conversing with them. But they started talking to them immediately as if they were intelligent and could hear and understand everything they were being told, which in fact, according to scientific investigations here in modern times, is actually true. Children hear and can remember what they're told while they're still in the womb. As soon as those ears and that fledgling nervous system begin to develop in the womb, children can hear and remember. So this was ingrained throughout the Toltec philosophy of life. Everybody, from the youngest infants to the oldest, most senior elders in the group, carried this philosophy. This philosophy became permeated throughout many parts of North America through a group of peoples known and united by their philosophy, not their genetics. The Totecayotl philosophy, and these groups who embraced it were known as the Anahuac. The Anahuac peoples were found over most of North America, and over time they seem to have moved south and concentrated in what became Mesoamerica and from southern Mexico on down to roughly the middle of Central America, in the present day country of Nicaragua. In fact, the name Nicaragua comes from the Nahuatl language words Nikan Anahuac, which means the end of the Anahuac. That was as far as the peoples had moved or migrated, and that was the division point. So south of there you went into the Incan empires and the Incan peoples, and north of there was the Anahuac peoples. And again, they were not a genetically unified people. It wasn't one race, it wasn't one tribe, and that too frustrates historians who just don't get it. They, either by design or intent, they don't, or their limitations of their thinking, they don't seem to embrace the idea that a society could have been this complex and this widespread at that early of a date, which is many thousands of years BC at this point that we're talking about. The Anahuac peoples, according to the oral tradition of the Toltecs, are the result of the merger between the survivors of Atlantis. I almost said descendants, and that's true too, but it was the survivors, those who got out before the Atlantean continent sank and had merged with peoples around the world and spread knowledge. And in North America, that process seems to have gone a little different in that the philosophy became a little more widespread, at least at those early dates, than it did in Europe or Africa or some of the other places, even into India, where there appears to have been remnants of that Atlantean knowledge, but the cultures didn't really completely embrace the Anahuac philosophies. But here, large portions of them did. Not all. There's stories of conflicts with other tribes, which may have been why one of the driving forces that moved the Anahuac south. Environmental problems such as drought could have been more of it. This concept, this multicultural community, is very important because here in the United States and many areas of the world today, we have a multicultural world. There's very few places where There's one pure genetic race that don't marry outside their race and rigidly maintain a unicultural society that's almost non-existent. And the Anuak philosophies are very important in this regard as terms of the emphasis on our spiritual similarities between all peoples and our responsibility as a human race to embrace this idea of the unity of humankind and to move humankind forward. Our race isn't done. We are evolving, both physically as well as spiritually. That's one of the main reasons the human race is here on this planet, is to evolve us into something else, something higher. There have been steps taken in this direction many times in the past, and humanity seems to advance so far, and then we crash and burn. And this has happened multiple times. The Atlantean fiasco was just the most recent. Through some of the ancient literature, such as the Mahabharata in India, we read of nuclear weapons destroying entire cities. And how do we know that's nuclear weapons? Well, the description, one of the primary descriptions, is of a metallic silvery bird that flies in the sky, that drops an egg, that bursts with the light of 10,000 suns and destroys an entire city in the blink of an eye. That pretty much sounds like nuclear weapons. Maybe it was only atomic, maybe it was nuclear, who knows? But even today, in a region in India, there is a plain where there's a strange layer of about 1 to 2 feet thick of an odd volcanic glass that no one could explain because there are no volcanoes anywhere near this location. And no one knew what it was until the United States began their above-ground nuclear testing during World War II. This is in the 1940s. And the site at, I can't remember the name all of a sudden, drawing a blank, in New Mexico, where Alamogordo, I believe, is where this nuclear testing was done. Once they began detonating these bombs on towers, just to prove that the concept worked, they found underneath there a layer of the same kind of volcanic glass that was about 3 inches thick. So whatever weapon, and it matches the structure that's been analyzed to these areas in India. So whatever weapon had detonated at that location in India was many, many, many times stronger than those early nuclear atomic. They were atomic bombs that we had developed in World War II. So since then, of course, we have gone on to develop weapons 100 times, 1,000 times stronger than the ones that we dropped in World War II. So that's at the very least very strong circumstantial evidence that past societies, between the physical evidence and the literary evidence that we have, that these advanced cultures had advanced technology and somehow wiped themselves out, or at least destroyed enough of their technology and their culture that it very quickly appears to have degraded and devolved, and the society regressed. And when you look at all the ancient writings on this subject, this has happened multiple times, not just Atlantis, not just this one nuclear war in what is now India, but multiple times. We've been right at the cusp of pushing through to a new level of evolution and human performance and fallen short. So that's one of the divine mandates given to human race, is that we are supposed to be working together and moving the humanity forward. To what? Good question. But all of our capabilities that we read about in the old literature about the gods or Christ or you know the instantaneous healing, there's a whole list of advanced capabilities that even Christ himself said, everything I can do, you can do, and more. So we've been given the formulas, we've been given the tools, and it's just like going to the gym. You have a gym membership, you pay for it, you've got all these machines, you've got treadmills and weightlifting and free weights and saunas and jacuzzis for therapies. You've got all kinds of manners of exercise bicycles. If you don't use those, you're not going to get in better shape. You're not going to advance your physical capabilities. And the same is true not just with our physical capabilities, but with our mental, emotional, and spiritual capabilities. It does no good to know how to meditate, to make contact with the higher divine planes, to bring in information about our true will, if we don't actually sit down and make the time to meditate and bring that information in and then use it. So the Toltec philosophy would prescribe that all levels of the human organism are important: the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And the highest of these is the spiritual. And we live in a culture that is attempting to deny that deny the spiritual completely, deny the intuitive side of our mind that we are supposed to be developing. So the reason you're getting this tape today is because I am traveling. My wife Bonnie and I are in Utah right now. I'm in the city of Manti, Utah. We are here in part to participate in a family reunion of the extended family on her side that we had kind of lost touch with for a number of years, and we've been reintegrating those family connections. Family is very important, and it's one of the aspects of the Toltec philosophy. When you read about the old Toltec philosophy, is family was deemed extremely important. Especially the children, training the children. And some of you have young children. I know this, and I've met some of them, and they're wonderful, amazing children. And the best thing you can do for those children is to teach them from wherever age they are now going forward that they have these higher spiritual capabilities right now. They when they see out of the corner of their eye a glowing color around a plant or even an animal, and they look and it's gone. It's like, no. Look from the periphery, diffuse your vision. It's that dreamer's stare. And then eventually they can train themselves to actually look at and maintain that vision. Teach them this. Teach them to meditate. Teach them that they have a true will, a true purpose that they alone came here to do, and that no one else can accomplish, and that their piece of this incredibly elegant three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle is vital for the whole, and they're the only ones who can do it. Teach them to remember why they're here. Another part of this journey we're on is we are visiting what some of, I'm sure are, and others may be, are ancient Toltec sites throughout the American West. There is a type of petroglyphs found in selected areas of the West that use a script that is sometimes called the Proto-Sinaitic script. And there have been linguists, and I've met a few, who have traced the development of this script, and it becomes, this Proto-Sinaitic language becomes the Hebrew, the Egyptian, and the Mayan, and a couple others. But those three in particular. This is an ancient script. These letters were carved long, long ago here in North America. Some of the letters, we just stopped at a site a couple days ago in Nevada, and the rock they were carved on was a little softer and has undergone a lot of water erosion that has wiped some out. So they were carved long enough ago that they've eroded heavily at a rate on a rock that erodes very slowly. So these languages are related in more modern times of just a few thousand years ago to a linguistics family known as the Proto-Uto-Aztecan languages, which include, in that Uto-Aztecan family, includes the Nahuatl language that was the official language of the Anahuac. So we're looking for and going to these places. And just as we've talked about with other Toltec artifacts, you can send the energy there and you can activate information. So that's part of this trip that I'm on right now. And it's tying together the past into the present and then to the future. And so, as part of your readings and studies, is when I give you information about some of these subjects and you are interested and you feel called to learn more about that, whether it's the Uto-Aztecan languages or the Proto-Semitic script or anything else about Atlantean/Anahuac history, pay attention to those promptings. Go start researching that. If you haven't already done so, you need to finish the 4 books that I have prescribed for my students. The 2 by Dion Fortune, Training and Work of an Initiate, and Esoteric Orders in the Work. Get those out of the way. That knowledge will be in there, and it kind of sets the stage of where we're going, what we're doing, and teaching you that the results of your effort are all dependent on you. How far you advance, how much you accomplish, it's all on you. I'm just a guide. I point you in the direction of where you need to go. I point you in the direction of what needs to be done. And I can answer questions and teach you specific skills and help you when you get stuck. But by comparison, I would say I'm kind of like the crotchety old mountain man who guided wagon trains across the country back in the day. I know the routes. I know where many of the pitfalls are. I know how to get around them, over them, through them, past them. But I'm not carrying you and your wagon to Oregon or California. You have to do that yourself. And so I'm available as a resource. So when you have questions, ask. But follow these promptings. Go study these bits and pieces of Toltec history. Read those books. The other 2, of course, are Coyote's book, The Toltec Survivor, which he combines a lot of information from a lot of areas in a lot of very elegant ways. And when you read his book, the energy will come through. And there are higher teachings available if you open yourself to it. So activate the energy, read that book. Get that in. And then the last one, of course, is The Human Biological Machine as a Transformational Apparatus by E.J. Gold. And you need to get that one read, even if you don't understand some of it. And of the 3, I would say, now it's going to be different for some people will find Coyote's book the hardest, others will find EJ's book the hardest. That's the core material that we work with, but there's a lot of details to be filled in after that. And every one of us has a slightly different free will. It's just my assessment that those are the 4 books you start with, and then you start branching out into the areas you're called to or drawn to. And honor those sensations of being drawn to this material or that material, because that's the way your holy guardian angel will steer you. And a lot of the work we do, of course, makes it easy for you to contact that angel and then get more accurate, more complete information. But in the meantime, follow those promptings. And especially for the Toltec history, there's just kind of to wrap things up for today, there's a lot of effort being taken to hide our true human history. And yes, it's a vast conspiracy. It makes some of our modern conspiracies like geoengineering and the chemtrails and the HARP systems that are modifying the weather to basically transform our planet into an environment no longer suitable for humans. It makes that conspiracy, as vast as it is, makes that one look pale by comparison. So ask yourself, what is it about our history, the true history, that they don't want us to know? There is somebody who doesn't want us to know about these ancient Atlantean and Toltec connections. In academia, in the last 50 to 60 years or so, there's been a huge shift in the way the Toltec information is referenced in literature. It went from being very important to now very minimally mentioned and highly disparaged. And now don't look at, no, that's mine. No, that's something else. No, that's an unknown people, the Teotihuacan race. But they don't call it Toltec anymore. So what is academia trying to hide? There are Toltec tools to find out the truth. And that's some of what I'll be teaching in the future. So, please pay attention to your promptings. Do your work. Don't be the person who, after a year at their gym membership, when their membership is up for renewal, realize they haven't been there since the day they signed up. Be the person who goes consistently, once a week, twice a week, 3 times, whatever's right for you on your gym membership, and do it. Do your meditations, do your readings, practice with the energy. Embrace the concept that you are a Toltec, that we who are in this lineage have a work to do to benefit humanity, for the benefit of all beings everywhere. So, I'll be posting photos of some of these ancient petroglyphs as we go. So pay attention. They may call to you. Something will call to you. And until then, do good, avoid evil.